Good morning, and welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. If you are interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism, please join us for our Just the Basics class on April 11th. If you'd like to know more about our church, please fill out the Get in Touch form using the link below in your video description. Good morning, I'm Reverend Rose, the minister here at SMUUCh. It is a joy to see you and an honor to be broadcast into your homes. Today I am filming our service where else but in the church. So many of us have sorely missed being in our sacred space, and so many of you have never even seen it. As you may or may not know, the congregation made a bold and brave choice to purchase an old elementary school that is situated on 17 acres of beautiful grounds that have old-growth oak trees, playgrounds, and a prairie in the heart of Old Town Lenexa. But the church building itself is a U-shaped building that is complete with many, many classrooms, with rows of little hooks where kids used to hang their little coats, and sinks, which we use for the many programs that our church offers. What was once the gym/cafeteria/auditorium is now our refurbished and beautiful sanctuary. We have invested so much time, talent, and treasure into this space. So today I'm going to have fun showing you how beautiful and unique it is. Because together we're better. Together we are a courageous church, a courageous country, a courageous globe. The past year has been challenging for all of us. But as a church community, we have grown in ways we never could have imagined. We have faced this last year with courage as we always do, and now the coming church year promises to bring renewed strength for our church, especially as we look forward to the joy of being together again. In the bonds of our community, we are all like the dandelions, rejuvenating the soil from which blooms healing, connection, friendship, fellowship, joy, and spiritual depth. The Stewardship Committee invites you to be part of the rejuvenation of our church in the coming year through our Dandelion Stewardship Drive. Thanks to your contributions, we'll be able to promote our programs such as a rich children's ministry and small groups for adults, the pantry and the shelter which are housed in our building, our community garden and prairie, continuing virtual services on Sunday morning, and so much more. We are so grateful to be on this journey with you. Grateful for your help as we continue to support each other, grow together, and plant the seeds of a new world. For our opening meditation, I join you from our religious education hallway. I invite you to close your eyes, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and repeat after me either in your head or out loud. I am rejuvenating. I am changing. I am growing. Come, let us worship.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
It's chalice lighting time! All you need is a candle, a spark, and some sort of special chalice. And some parental supervision. Before we light our chalice, we'd like to show you a glimpse of what the sanctuary looks like during COVID times. You will see a wall of chairs that we've constructed as a sound barrier and our beautiful original wooden ceiling. Please join me in affirming that love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Woo! Hey kids, I'm Squirrely. You may remember me from the punk shows you've attended, or from maybe the times that we've had to be in the quiet corner during RE. I can get pretty wound up, but this spring I've decided to try my hand at poetry. So I'd like to read you this poem. In the time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow and flowers lift their heads, and all over the plain the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In the time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky, when spring and life are new.
This is the time in our service where we expand the caring love of our congregation, where we draw to heart and mind those in our midst who are suffering and those who feel the sweet relief of their burdens easing. We give our love to those untangling themselves from relationships which no longer serve them. We grieve for the loss of energy and time that chronic illness takes on the body and mind, and our hearts go out to all who are struggling to make ends meet. We extend our gratitude to those who make caring for children their primary spiritual practice, and we join in wonder with all who are bravely facing their final days. Take a minute to close your eyes. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and send a well wish or a prayer to someone who you know is struggling with something heavy. As you breathe deeply, imagine taking a little bit of their burden off of them. Imagine you're taking a huge weight off their shoulders and that they can breathe easily for a moment, free and peaceful. Draw their face to your mind and repeat our mantra after me. You are rejuvenating. You are changing. You are growing. As always, we rejoice over the exquisite beauty in this world, as small or life-changing as each piece of beauty might be. Our reading today comes from Parker Palmer, who says, "Our deepest calling is to grow into our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our path of authentic service to the world." I've entitled this sermon, Rejuvenating Church. And before I say anything more, I want to dissect the word rejuvenation. Typically, we think of this term to mean going from a bad place to a good place. But in its root, the heart of this word is the word juven, which you may be familiar with from the Spanish word joven or the word juvenile, which means youth. Thus, when we talk about rejuvenation, we mean to become young again. I interpret this to mean that when we rejuvenate ourselves, when we rejuvenate the world, when we rejuvenate the church, we are bringing something from our past, something of our youth through, pulling like a thread through time, elements of our former selves, our histories, our memories, and our stories to rejuvenate us, remind us, and revitalize us to who we really are. I think that this concept of becoming young again is deep because we can become so engulfed in our present self that we can nearly forget that we have the DNA of that same wild young adult who rode their bike across the country. We can forget that our family has the same DNA as ancestors who lived right through terrible conditions. We forget that we as a church have that same humble DNA of our origins, and we forget that as a community, we have the same theological DNA of those who stood for powerful and moral spiritual truths throughout the ages. So let me start with you. Is there a you, a younger you, that you long for? A you that was imbued with something that you now feel is lost? Perhaps this person was dedicated, free, hopeful, fit. What would it mean to rejuvenate yourself? I invite you to take a moment and envision this certain you, an age, a moment, a photo you've got. See yourself in your mind's eye. What would it mean to invite that person, to pull that person like a thread through time to join you today? I wonder, what would you say to them? What would you ask them? What wisdom does that self hold for you now? And what could you do to hold them? What could you do to hold them in this moment, to bring them here, to entice them to stay with you? My own process today around this included wearing these glasses that I wore as a young adult to preach today. So I invite you to ask yourself, could you invite this person forward by making more art? Would that hold them here? What if you moved your body? Would this bring them out? What if you decided to break more rules or play your instrument? I'd like to tell you a quick story about someone for whom life was completely rejuvenated because of a remembering of a past self. Her name is Robin Wall Kimmerer, and you may recognize her name from some readings that I've used from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Her story of remembering has to do with her ancestors, remembering her connection to her family history and the depth of connections that she had as a child. As a kid, she had always loved wildlife, and she was encouraged by her parents to love the plants in all their glory. Growing up, she knew sort of intellectually that she had significant indigenous heritage, but due to all of the trauma of her people, as she grew older and her love of plants grew, she was divorced from the great indigenous plant wisdom of her people. She missed out on a huge, grand, and complex matrix of knowledge when she was geared towards a Western science-based lens only. But as she grew older, and as she became interested in doing some of that rejuvenation work, as she became more empowered or open to doing the deeper work on her younger self and her ancestors, she came to realize that her love of plants had a much deeper connection, which was spiritual. And she uncovered a lot of depth for herself. Spiritually, professionally, ecologically, linguistically, that truly brought together her past and her present to integrate that DNA of her present life, to pull some of what seemed long ago through time into the present day. To wed herself and her science and her community to find the third place of great depth, remembering and thus rejuvenating some of that youthful spiritual wonder she had had for plants, and then growing in her vocation to be able to support all of us in her authorship about the wonderment over the web of all life. And interestingly, I think it wasn't until she went through a crisis that she had the willingness to do that deep integrating work. And thus, this moment, as we go through a crisis, is a good moment for us as a church to think about what we are doing here, to think about our younger self. As we turn towards the coming year with the Dandelion Stewardship Campaign, we wonder, where can we rejuvenate as a church by doing some storytelling about who this church was in its youth? Why look at this now? Because we are in a time of great transition. We've changed a lot in the last year, and clearly we're going to be changing a lot in the coming year. So this is a natural moment to take stock of who we want to be in the world and who we've been. Who we want to be for our children, who we want to be for the earth. As we mull over this question, as we face a future question of how and when we will be able to come back together, we can ask ourselves, is there wisdom we can glean from our younger church self? Now, before I tell you the story about the founding of this church, I want to introduce you to a concept, which is that idea of the third place. The idea is that we all need a third place. We have a home, and then we have school or work. But it's the third place, the church, the hobby, the bookstore, the park, the activist work, which fundamentally allows us to be strong. Remember when I preached on how strong triangles are? Because when we have that third place, we all do better. We have a space then to do the spiritual work that we need to do in order to do well with our work and our families. We have a space where we are lovingly invited to rejuvenate ourselves, to better ourselves. Now, if we were to rejuvenate this church, if we were to draw to mind who this church was back in its youth, we go back to 1967, when the church was founded. Of course, I wasn't alive, but I have heard quite a few stories and I have gone through the archives. And so if I were to think of things that I wanted to pull forward from the past, a few come to mind. The first is that this church was on time and that it was humble. The church was on time because when it was founded in 1967 here in Johnson County, it was popping out right alongside the rest of the community. That decade, Johnson County quadrupled its population, And in the same year the church was founded, so was the Johnson County Museum, and the United Community Service was also founded that same year. All of this to say that the founders of this church knew that any community would need a beacon of liberal religion, that they felt so strongly about it that they moved quickly and efficiently and with great passion to ensure that there was a third place which held the values that we do. And when I say it was humble, I mean that for many years this church met in a barn, in an old farm. The offices were in the drafty old farmhouse, and the community itself built and refurbished and repurposed, rejuvenated the space, building themselves a barn chapel. And the kids met for RE in cute little refurbished milking stalls. I think that this is so important to raise up and so sweet and something that we can be proud of from our past, because this church is still those things. We're on time, we show up when we're needed, and we are humble. When we bought this elementary school with its tiny little toilets and its deferred building maintenance, we did it not because it made us look good, but because it was practical and here and humble and sweet. Automatically, its very origins were meant for children. This church has always been a third place for families. We've always been uber committed to children's RE, and we're known in the region to have this specialty amongst the UU churches. So as we assess what we want to pull through time, as we look to our church's DNA, we can be intentional about keeping this relevancy and humility as we move forward. And lastly, of course, as we seek to rejuvenate the world, as we hope to be a beacon of liberal religion in the U.S. today, we look to the history of Unitarian Universalism. So let's see what this movement was doing 100 years ago, 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. Very briefly, I want to draw you back in time to Europe in the 1500s, to when our religion was very young, just finding its legs during the Protestant Reformation. Now, there are so many ways that the DNA from this time is still coursing through our messages. So many stories that are rejuvenating us all the time. Stories of strong moral compass, commitment to reason and science. But the thing that I want to pull forward in time today is that even in our very youth, we, UUs, were committed to the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Indeed, the Unitarians of old were, amazingly, the kings and queens of Transylvania. And because we did have that power, we as a religion were able to create a bastion of religious pluralism during a time that was just 50 years after the end of the Inquisition, in a time when people were burned at the stake frequently for their religious beliefs. Our Unitarian forebears decreed a law called the Edict of Torda, which allowed for Jews, Muslims, and dissenters from the Catholic Church to live freely and safely without the threat of religious persecution within the bounds of what was then Transylvania. Feel familiar? For we now continue to be a safe place for so many people who have been burned by other religions. We who have so many interreligious couples, and we who believe that everyone is privileged to their own truth. So who are we as a church? We are a congregation of spiritual seekers who are wanting to do the work of spiritual and vocational and familial integration. We are relevant and humble, a stable third place for so many kiddos to grow up, for so many intergenerational families and so many individuals. We are the voice of liberal religion in Johnson County, which keeps loud the voice of human dignity in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We are that sacred, important space. We rejuvenate the world with each worship we hold, with each act of justice we stand up for, with each family who comes here to raise their children. When we do the work of rejuvenation, we are bringing something from our past, something of our youth through, pulling like a thread through time, elements of our former selves, our histories, our memories, and our stories to remind us, revitalize us to who we truly are, finding our path of authentic service in this world. During this pandemic, we've had a lot of time to think. And as we come out of it, as we start to move and stretch and try on a new life, let us do so with the utmost reverence for our former selves, for our ancestors, for the DNA of our beliefs, being intentional about what it is we want to be in this world, bringing forth the parts of ourselves and our communities which have been sleeping but are so needed for us to thrive. Ultimately, then, we will fulfill the deepest call of growing into our authentic selfhood. The work of the church depends on us. In the context of global and national strife, SMUUCh can create and foster space for connection and healing. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values.
Jenny's afraid of water. I mean, she swims so well, but still she's afraid of water. And so she won't go near the sea. Not me. Katie's afraid of darkness. I mean, she sleeps and all, but still she's afraid of darkness. So when the lights go out, she has to hold my hand. I don't understand. I'm not afraid of anything, be it mountains, water, dragons, dark, or sky. I'm not afraid of anything. Tell me, where's the challenge if you never try? So watch me fly. I'm not afraid. Daddy's afraid of babies. I mean, he got through me, but now he's afraid of babies. Guess he's scared of what they'll be. Not me. Mama's afraid of crying. You know, she tries to hold it in. She's afraid of crying. She can look at you with tears stuck in her eye, and I don't know why. I'm not afraid of anything, be it growing old or going out of style. I'm not afraid of anything. Who would give up what they want without a trial? Another mile. I'm not afraid. And I hear the calling of adventure, and I hear the ringing in my ear. The lights are glaring, trumpets blaring, I'm right here. And I hear the calling of tomorrow, and I hear the stirring in my bones. And David loves me. He's afraid to hold me. Listen to the sound of the excitement. Can you feel the pounding in my heart? The lights are ready, pulse is steady, I can start. Never stop the calling of the challenge, blessing of the water and the stones. And David loves me. He's afraid to tell me. And David loves me. He's afraid to trust me. He's afraid to hold me, and he'll always be. He's afraid of me, and I'm not afraid of anyone. I am sure to win with anyone at all, and I'm not afraid of anyone. Not a soul alive who can get behind this wall. So let them call and watch them fall. 'Cause after all, I'm not afraid.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as visionless, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
For our longer meditation, I join you from a corner of a religious education children's classroom. I invite you to close your eyes, put your feet flat on the floor, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, taking 5 deep, long breaths, the deepest breaths you've taken today. As we sit quietly, I will read Squirrely's poem once more. He Lied. It's from the hymnal. And as I read it, I invite you to envision each image as I say it. In the time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow and flowers lift their heads, and all over the plain the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In the time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky when spring and life are new. Just take a moment to hold in your heart what new life could look like for us as a nation, as stewards of the earth, as a church community, and now to complete our mantra, please repeat after me, either silently or out loud. We are rejuvenating. We are rejuvenating. We are changing. We are growing. Take one more deep breath, and you may open your eyes. Blessed be, and amen.